All right, we're in 1 Kings 8. And on Sundays, I'm going to try to do an overview. It's really funny. I said I'm going to do an overview, and I will. And then I've taken so many weeks just in Genesis 1 and 2. I'm not going through the whole Bible that slow, okay? But it's important. There's some really foundational things that we're setting in Genesis, and then other stories that we'll skip through and hit along the Old Testament scene will build on what foundation we're laying right now. But on Wednesday nights, as we go through, I am in no hurry. As long as, I don't want to overload you with information, but I want you to get enough where you say, I got something out of that. And that's really the goal on a Wednesday night, have time for prayer and then enough time for scripture where you get something out of it, and we're working our way through, and I'm enjoying it. All right, so in 1 Kings 8, it's a long chapter. It's a very pivotal chapter. It ends so many things and starts so many things, and just this week studying chapter 8, I thought I could easily spend a month or more just on chapter 8. And I think that you guys would actually even enjoy a lot of it. I'm not going to do that. Probably 2 weeks, because I want to keep moving through the scripture. But if you look at the subject titles through your chapter in this chapter, we're going to look today. It says the ark brought to the temple. All right, Solomon has finally built the temple. It's completed. We talked about that construction and the construction of his palace and other things. We will later talk about more construction that he does. Shame on him for all these wives that he's got and for their gods. We'll get to that. But the point we're at right now, the temple's built and the ark is being brought to the temple. When they do it, what we're going to see tonight is it wasn't just, hey, the temple's done, bring the ark. Since Solomon is a wise administrator, planner, he plans what I think might be the biggest national event in the history of Israel, not only up to that point, but maybe ever. And we're going to see just how much goes into to that event. It's not just bring the ark and put it in there, it's done. It's let's make an event out of this. So we're going to look at that. And then in verse 22, Solomon's prayer of dedication. And he has this prayer that is just beautiful. And I think that's what we're going to look at next week. And then later on, the dedication of the temple. What I'd like to do today is make it to verse 21. And if there's time within that, these 21 verses, there's a topic of God's glory that we're going to see. And we're going to try to take, if there's time, a divine rabbit trail. Yeah. All right. So there's a tremendous amount packed into chapter 8. Let's begin by reading the first few verses. Here we go. Then King Solomon summoned into his presence at Jerusalem the elders of Israel, all the heads of the tribes, and the chief of the Israelite families, to bring up the ark of the Lord's covenant from Zion, the city of David. Stop right there. How many people is he bringing up that he's calling to participate in the bringing up of the ark? Yeah. Why get all the elders, all the chief families, all the heads of tribes?
They represent the whole
They represent the whole nation. If the leader is called to be a part of this event, who else is going to be there? Yeah, yeah. It's I got called to be part of this. We're all going, and that's what's going to happen. Verse 2. All the Israelites came together to King Solomon at the time of the festival in the month of Ethanim, the 7th month. All right, so he organized it to be at the festival time, where many would come to Jerusalem anyway. And since they're going to be there, he says, I want every head, every chief, every leader, every bigwig, everybody that's known by anybody, they're going to be participating in this thing. That's smart advertisement. And so that's what he's doing. He's organizing the biggest national event. Imagine the logistics. Housing for all those people. The people far, far away that have to make a pilgrimage. How many people, if you've got to make your pilgrimage in one time in your life and it's really hard to do, would choose to do that the year the temple has its inauguration? You see what I'm saying? Anybody that has one due, they're going. So this is a big deal. But imagine the housing, the food, the sacrifices. Please do.
Go back to Deuteronomy chapter 16. There's significance as to why he waited for this feast.
Okay.
It's the Feast of Tabernacles.
Right.
And so it says, this is after you've gathered the produce of your threshing floor and your winepress. Be joyful at your feast. You, your sons and daughters, your men servants and maidservants. And it goes on. It says, for 7 days celebrate the feast to the Lord your God at the place the Lord will choose. So this is a fulfillment
Of that.
Moses's. And so, this Feast of Tabernacles was to remind them of when they came out of Egypt. And they came out of Egypt with the tabernacle.
Right.
And this is, so it's significant that they're doing it at this time.
Yeah. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because throughout this chapter, if I could put a key word on today, it would be covenant. And God made this covenant with them, with Abraham, and then verified it through Isaac and Jacob and Moses, and here they are. And this is the day prophesied about. This is the day that begins it. And there's a lot more to even that. There's something that's supposed to go 7 days that went 14, and there's all kinds of other things that are going on that I wish I had time to dive in deep, but we would sit on chapter 8 for 2 months.
There's one other thing.
Please, but bring it up, whatever, bring it.
The other name for the Feast of Tabernacles is the Feast of Booths. So this is when you're talking about finding housing.
Yeah.
No, they're living out they're living under the booths.
How fun.
So it's a big camping expedition.
And
They still do that today, Kathy?
Some people.
some, but I've read somewhere that what they call a booth is different now, and there's things they can do to their own apartment to call it a booth during that time. I don't know.
Or the church that I used to go to would have this festival. And in the church, rather the churchyard, the church itself came out like this, and they had this big patio. So everybody would come out with their tent.
Oh, really?
Sleeping bags and all.
Oh, how fun.
Yeah, it was.
All right, so here's what I want you to think about, though. This is the closure of the need for a tabernacle. What's the difference between the tabernacle and the temple?
One's mobile, the other one's not.
One was mobile, one was not. One was a tent, the other one is a permanent dwelling. They had similar design, similar areas, similar purpose, but one is to be picked up and moved. So what would, to the Israelites that are there, what is the symbolism of the fact that the tabernacle is now done and they have a temple? Yeah, it's like,
The promise of God to bring them to the promised land is totally fulfilled.
can you imagine what that was like for them? Like, this is it. This is, for hundreds of years, our ancestors have talked about it, and here we are. Thank you. Mm-hmm. We've got the best looking waitress around here. But I want you to think about, they're not just bringing the ark, they brought everything from the tabernacle, and we'll read it here in a minute, all the furnishings, everything that was there, because they're concluding the tabernacle. But were there things in the tabernacle that would be necessary in the temple? Yeah. Is everything associated with the tabernacle needed in the temple? No. So this is a saying goodbye to some things, bringing on other things along and saying these things will continue. And so it's a big to do about this. So let's read verse 3. When all the elders of Israel had arrived, the priests took up the ark. Just observation. Is that important that it was the priests that took up the ark? I mean, he just called up everybody from every tribe and all these leaders and chiefs to bring up the ark. So when it says he's bringing everybody to bring up the ark, but the priests brought up the ark, what is going on? What's really happening? They're the designated carriers, but it shows that this bringing up of the ark is broader than just bringing up the ark. It's bringing up the ark to do something, and it's going to be the inauguration of the temple. So that's why everybody's there. Let's keep going. Verse 4. And they brought up the ark of the Lord and the tent of meeting, so that's the tabernacle, and all the sacred furnishings in it. The priest and the Levites carried them up, and King Solomon and the entire assembly of Israel that had gathered about him were before the ark, sacrificing, watch this, so many sheep and cattle that they could not be recorded or counted. Do you think they were used to recording big numbers of that? Yeah, that's what they do. They love the paper trail. That was pedigree. My family's been consistent for so much years. You know, it's like you got to prove. You go to the priest and get proof of this that was done and this is done. They keep record, and it says there's so many they just do it. Just can't count them.
Immediately when I read that, though, I'm thinking, like, the sheer amount of blood that would be, the mess
Yep.
that would entail.
Yeah. Which could lead us to other discussions. So much blood, and how much of that actually moved one sin? None. How valuable is Christ's blood? I mean, just, anyway, that's verse 6. The priests then brought the ark of the Lord's covenant to its place in the inner sanctuary of the temple, the most holy place, and put it beneath the wings of the cherubim. The cherubim spread their wings over the place of the ark and overshadowed the ark and its carrying poles. All right, so in the Holy of Holies, there are these, if you go back to when it described the temple that Solomon built, there were cherubim in the Holy of Holies. And, yes, the ark had cherubim on it, but this is putting the ark underneath these cherubim built in the Holy of Holies. And it says, overshadowed the ark and its carrying poles. Just think about that for a moment. They brought the ark in. First of all, why would it have carrying poles? Because that's the only way you're supposed to move it. Is there any other way to move that thing? Nope. Got to use the carrying poles. Not unless you want to die. You want to put it on a cart and, yeah, ask Uriah. Now watch this. These poles were so long that their ends could be seen from the holy place. So you've got, if I had a square, it'd be the inside, the inner room is the Holy of Holies. There's a veil or a curtain that separates that room from the most holy place. And who's allowed into the Holy of Holies? High priest. How often? And he can just walk in that once a year? Big stuff he's got to do to go in there. And this is saying that the poles are so big that from inside the holy place, you could see the poles of the ark. We're going to talk about this for a minute. I just try to visualize this because I had a hard time. I probably spent way too much time on that when I studied it, but I found some interesting things. But let me read this, verse 8. These poles were so long that their ends could be seen from the holy place in front of the inner sanctuary, but not from outside the holy place. And they are still there today. So by the time of the writing of Kings, giving the history of way back when they put it in, so when they put it in, you could see, for those that are allowed in the most holy place, in the holy place, would verify that you could still see the poles that are connected to the ark in the Holy of Holies. Jimmy.
With that being said, here's a plan of, in the inner sanctuary, it's 20 cubits from front to back. And then in the sanctuary, or the holy place, it's 40 cubits. And then when you come into the vestibule, it's 10 cubits. So that's pretty long. Those poles have to be pretty long.
They have to be very long. And probably not what you normally see. So when I read that, I thought, now wait a minute. You could see? Could they see the ark? No, but it says they could see the poles. But what from one room to the next? What problem do we have with this? All right, how much of the Holy of Holies could you see from the holy place? What's between them? How big is that curtain?
Actually, they were doors. I just went back and checked in 1 Kings 6.
In the temple, they built doors?
Doors. Made doors of olive wood with 5-sided jambs.
Wow.
But
But-
it could not have gone all the way, don't ask me, I can't explain what it looks like.
Yeah, so I did a deep dive into this stuff. I researched, trying to figure because I'm a sucker for what's that like in real life, Because by the way, these stories were real life, right? And so whenever I can find something like that, it helps me to visualize it. And many commentaries miss what Kathy read, because they talk about the curtain that's there. Is there a veil also? I wonder, because I know in Herod's temple there will be, because when Jesus dies, the veil is torn. So here's what they say. What I could read was nobody could see into the Holy of Holies and see anything inside there, because that was blocked off. You got this huge curtain, you got these doors, you can't see in there. But doesn't it say you could see the poles? Because they were so long. And so some have said that maybe, But it doesn't say that they protruded into the holy place. It says could be seen from the holy place. So here's what I think the best answer is that I could come up with is that there was, even if there's doors to lock it off, there was a veil. Because there was a veil in the tabernacle. We know there's one in Herod's temple. And that it was the handles that would stick out. You wouldn't actually see them themselves, but you would see them pushing the curtain out. Okay? Now, do we know exactly what it means? No. It doesn't explain some things that I'd like to know. But nobody that was there argued, no, you can't. Right? In fact, years later, when it was written, it's saying it's been this way ever since this first day, all the way until now. And so the bigger question is not, I wonder what it looked like, but why did God, A, leave the handles in the ark? And B, in such a way that people would know that they're there. A reminder of what? As a reminder that they had to carry it when it was a tabernacle. I believe that that's part of it. What else?
They're not allowed in to see if it's still there. So if it's poking the curtain, they know it's
Yeah, to have the evidence to know that the high priest gets to go in and see it, but the reality of it being there, I think would be huge. When you can't see the ark, but I can see those poles sticking out. That confidence that it's still there, it's attached to that ark, would be kind of neat, wouldn't it? But I thought about it, and this is what I thought of. The ark, as they think, is now in its permanent location, built in a permanent temple as God's permanent dwelling place. But is it? And I think there's something there that's saying that God cannot be put in a box even if it's the temple. Okay? And God knew that is not the ark's permanent dwelling place. They thought it would be, but God knew it's going to have to be moved again. And why? Could it have stayed right there? We're going to see in the prayer of Solomon, and I think it's today's prayer that we'll see today, is he prays, fulfill your promise, that if we will do everything that you ask, that this is a permanent place, and there will always be a descendant of David on this throne. All right, so look, that was not the divine rabbit trail, but it was a little side note just because I found that study to be interesting. Let's go on to verse 9, and this I'm going to do real quick. There was nothing in the ark except the 2 stone tablets that Moses had placed in it at Horeb, where the Lord made a covenant with the Israelites after they came out of Egypt. All right, I'm just going to mention this quickly because people that you will meet are always looking for controversies or contradictions in the Bible. And in the book of Hebrews, chapter 9, the first 5 verses, it talks about it, and it mentions that the ark, and in it, the rod of Aaron and the manna, all right, and the stones. So it mentions those 3 things. How do we reconcile that in Hebrews, where they don't have it with them anymore, it's gone at this time, and they're speaking of the past, how is it that they say those 3 things were there, and back here it says just the one thing was there? Y'all understand the question? All right, anybody got an answer? You got an answer?
I could speculate that it
Okay.
added later.
Yep. One could speculate that it was added later. Others have speculated that it was there before and no longer necessary. And I think the best answer is even sometimes, just like here in this chapter, Solomon summoned people to do what? To bring up the ark. People that weren't bringing up the ark. They were there to celebrate the bringing up of the ark. Y'all see that? Okay. It's like you're helping to bring up the ark. How? Well, you're part of the celebration. You just need to be here for the event, the bringing up of the ark event. Certain people are doing the act of bringing it up, but you surround that. And when you look at what God told them to do with Aaron's rod and with the manna, he never says put it in the Ark of the Covenant. He says put it before the Lord at the Ark of the Covenant. And so to see those as associated with the Ark would make sense. And so when they say it's in it, doesn't necessarily mean in it, but in the context of the Ark, those things were there. That's what the author of Hebrews is saying. All right. So if you got more questions than that, I could talk more, but I'm just trying to show you that even when there's controversy, there are answers.
Well, I went back and looked, just for the
Mm-hmm.
Exodus 16:33, it says to put it before the Lord to be kept for the generations to come, for the jar of manna.
Mm-hmm.
And then the same thing on the rod that blossomed.
Exactly.
It says to put it in front of.
Yeah.
It never says.
It never says in it.
inside of it.
But it was there with it. It was associated with it. That's what I'm saying. So if you look at the original commands of God, it was never to say put it in it. It say put it before it. Put it at it.
Well, and even as we're talking about it being the end of the tabernacle, Aaron's rod that budded was for them to respect Moses. That was the sign that Moses was in charge.
Yes.
They didn't need that anymore.
That's exactly right. And same with the manna.
Stopped as soon as they entered the promised land.
Yes, it did stop. And I think there may have been manna with it after that as a reminder of God's provision. But you know, that was what some of the things I read on it also is, but God's reminder of provision as they traveled in the wilderness was no longer necessary, that they have the promised land, and God has already fulfilled that. So they may have been gone by this time. But just to show you that there's an answer for these things. All right. Any question on that? Verse 11. And the priests could not perform their service because of the... verse 10. When the priests withdrew from the holy place, the cloud filled the temple of the Lord, and the priests could not perform their service because of the cloud, for the glory of the Lord filled his temple. I think it was a whole lot more than smoke. Yeah, it was more than a fog machine.
At this point, Pastor, you'd say, let that sink in.
Exactly. I'm going to come back and talk about his glory in just a moment. I want to keep reading. I've got a few other things I want to say. Verse 12. Then Solomon said, the Lord has said that he would dwell in a dark cloud. I have indeed built a magnificent temple for you, a place for you to dwell forever. So that sounds really arrogant. He's gonna tone that down. But was it magnificent? Yeah. Is it important that Solomon recognizes that he built it? Kyle says yes. Why, Kyle?
Because that's what God told David.
Exactly.
That he would do it with his blood on his hands, and his son Solomon would do it because he's going to be the king of Israel.
Exactly. So we if you just the first reading until you read the rest of it, sounds like he's saying, well, look what I did for God. I built him something magnificent. And he's not. He's really stating the fulfillment of prophecy. And he'll make that clear in a moment. I did it. because God said I was going to. And I made it magnificent because God deserves it. The only caveat is a place to dwell forever. He thought that's what it would be. But we'll see a hint in the fact that Solomon knew that that specific temple was not guaranteed to be forever.
Well, I think when David collected the building materials,
Mm-hmm.
he started that process, he knew how grand it was going to be.
Yes. And Solomon continued to collect materials for it, even above what David had collected. And so it was big. I'm not going to go back for the sake of time. We're not going to go back to Exodus 40. But back in Exodus 40, the tabernacle was completed being built. And when it's finished, they installed the ark, and a cloud appears, and glory fills the tabernacle, so that Moses cannot enter it. Does any of this sound familiar? The temple's been finished, the ark installed, the cloud appears, and glory fills it, and the priests can't enter it. I'm running out. 4 minutes. See, I really enjoy the discussion at the beginning of class until now. This is when I hate it. What are you going to say?
Said it looks like we might be on this for 3 weeks.
We might be on this for 3 weeks. All right, I'm not going to go. Just for that, I'm going to speed through this in 3 minutes. Second Chronicles, we won't turn to right now, but in chapter 5, it talks about the same event. It's the parallel passage, right? And it adds that there were worshipers and singers. It gives them more of the fragrance of the event by doing that. And at the end of Solomon's dedication in 2 Chronicles 7, it shows God's acceptance by fire of these things. So here's I'm just going to give it to you in 3 minutes. Here we go. It would have been fun to slow down, but I can give it to you the overview. This is the divinely inspired rabbit trail. Speaking of the glory of God, because this is where the glory of God comes in and fills the temple. Y'all understand that? And if you go back to the tabernacle when God did it there, it was an amazing thing. So the book of Ezekiel, the prophet, is talking about God's glory, but it's at a time just before the Babylonian captivity. You know what that is? That's where Israel is in idolatry, and God says, I'm going to remove you, I'm going to scatter you. Babylon's coming in, they're going to overtake you. That's where Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego get kidnapped and taken away to Babylon. That whole story, right? Listen to this. In Ezekiel 8, it says a heavenly man, possibly Jesus, it doesn't say it, but it seems like it could be, shows up to Ezekiel and shows him God's glory. And he says, it shows him God's glory in the temple, but he said there's an idol in the temple that has really made God mad. So they took this temple that Solomon built, and they didn't just make other temples for other idols. They moved an idol into God's temple. How mad do you think God's going to be? In chapter 9, God's glory, all right, man, I'm going to do that next week. It's just too good. It's just too good. And the point I wanted to leave you with today, if I'd have had 10 more minutes, would have made me feel like I left you with some encouragement. And the so what, I like to give you the so what of the story. And Right now, what you got is the foundation of the so what for next week, so you all have to come back, or I'll be very disappointed.
Where was the tabernacles completion? Where was that first found?
The what?
When you mentioned, you gave a reference for where they were finished, the glory filling the tabernacle.
That would be Exodus 40, verses 34 and 35 specifically will get you there. And,
I got the other ones, I wrote down Second Chronicles.
okay. Well, let's at least walk out with a little application here. Because it'll drive me nuts if I don't. What's happening is Solomon put everything into this. He did do his best in that temple. And God is accepting that temple. He moves in and he does things to say, I accept that temple. And the heart was for it to be permanent. But even though God moved in, and what we're going to look at deeper next week is that God began to move back out. And even to remove his glory from the temple. And he doesn't do it all at once. He does it in stages. For all of us, there may be moments in our life where we say, God, I'm all in. And he can fill us and work with us in such a unique way where you know, man, me and God were like this. And you are in that moment. But sometimes, just like what Israel's going to do, is they're going to live off their history. I remember when God showed up, we know he's there. The poles are sticking through the curtain somehow that they could be seen from the holy place to know they're in the Holy of Holies. See, God's there. We know it. But knowing God was there was not enough to keep them from shifting their passions to where they noticed other gods, desired other gods, pursued other gods, and then other gods replaced Jehovah God. Don't let that happen in your life. Pursue him every day. We'll look more at that next week, but I just want to at least leave you with where I'm going with this. All right, any other comments, questions? Jimmy.
Speaking of the temple, fast forward,
Yeah.
when it is built, or it may be being built as we speak, will it follow that same plan that Solomon had?
Yes, I believe it will. I mean, or that Herod had. The shape, the form, they're trying to make the temple as similar to, I believe, what Herod had. I don't think a nation alive right now could afford what Solomon did. The amount of money it would take. But the shape, the size, the stones, they've got, as I understand it, they found in excavation the quarry where the stones were cut from. And it showed how they were cut. There were some that were done, some that were almost done. And so they started to quarry that, and you know what you read, whether it's true or not, we'll find out. But from the Temple Institute and other things that I've read, they claim to have all the materials they need right now to build the temple, including the furnishings, the clothes for the priests, everything that they need, that once they get the okay, they know that that okay will get challenged and try to be pulled away and stopped. That's the history of Israel. Read the Old Testament. And so they're prepared for that, and they do plan ahead so that if they were given the okay tomorrow, it could be functioning in less than 6 months. That's a fast build. But if you've got everything in order, you've got the design, you know what it takes, it could be done. And so, man, That's part of prophecy. And I don't want to get into the whole prophecy thing right now. I could spend the next hour talking. Any other comments, questions? All right, dear Heavenly Father, I just pray that this would be an encouragement to us as we see a man-made structure that an infinite God came into. And as we're going to see really over the next 2 weeks, is that that temple was meant not to put you in that box and say, this is the only place you're at. That Solomon even says that that temple, as magnificent as it is, cannot contain you, but should be recognized as the place you meet with them. And Lord, we don't have the temple. Jesus even said to the Samaritan woman, it's not about the temple or the tabernacle or this city or that city, but a time was coming and had come with him standing there. That our temple, our tabernacle, is anywhere we are. We have access to the Holy of Holies in the presence of God. These things that we're reading about that others at that time were not allowed to do, we have that access. And yet, Lord, I fear that with that kind of access, we don't take advantage of it, we don't respect it, we don't reverence it in the same way Solomon speaks about in his dedication speech that we'll look at in the next few weeks. Lord, teach us to reverence you and your presence and your glory, to mourn when we see it missing. In Jesus' name, amen.